So recently I asked AI what I should do with my life. As I was going back and forth on this decision I wanted to make in my life, and I wasn't sure what my next step should be. So I told it what was going on, and I just asked it what I should do. And maybe you've been in that kind of place too, where you're trying to figure out what to do next, and you're struggling a little bit on what your next step should be. So if you're in that place right now, and you're waiting for someone else to have the answer, and you're even wondering if maybe AI might have the answer for you, stay with me, because I want to tell you what happened. And what happened next showed me something that might help you see your next step in a completely different way. So I told it what was going on, and then it spit out this big long answer. And it was kind of nice because I've been going back and forth on this a lot and wasn't sure if the steps I was taking were right. And it was kind of nice to have, just this, here's what you should do, and here's why you should do it, and this is the next step you should take. And I started reading through it, and it all sounded very logical. Basically, it told me to stop doing what I was doing, to stop going toward this dream that I had, and to get practical. And here's the thing, when it said that, it sounded wise, responsible. I mean, it was the kind of advice that most people would probably say that I should follow. So I sat there wondering if maybe I should follow that advice. That maybe it was time to stop chasing this dream that I was chasing and be realistic, right? We hear that, be realistic. Here's what AI told me. It said I should stop what I was doing and focus on something more sensible. That I should fall back on the kind of work that I used to do. And not only that, but do that kind of work in a way that was demanded in today's world. So the kind of work we're talking about is technical, structured, and corporate. Things that I've never loved, but that technically I could survive on. And it even said, here's a direct quote, because right now you're choosing artistic integrity over financial stability, and you can't eat artistic integrity. That's a direct quote from AI. So that line stuck with me in particular because part of me knew that that was right, that you can't eat artistic integrity. Part of me knew that was true. But there was another part of me as I'm reading through all of this. And it was kind of funny because I'm like two people in one. I have one person saying, oh yeah, this sounds practical. This sounds right. This is probably what I should do. This is responsible. This is a good advice. That is going on. And meanwhile, there's this other side that's going, I mean, just totally spazzing out and, kind of screaming, what? Just like felt like this AI suggestion, and particularly if I follow this AI suggestion, this other part of me felt like it would just be erased, that it would just be removed from my life, that would be removed from existence. And that is the trap of advice that sounds reasonable. That's my point for this video, is because when we're in a place of life transition and we're not sure what to do, indecision is painful, indecision is overwhelming, so we're looking for anybody to help us. And we can get advice that sounds really good, sounds logical, it sounds practical, it sounds like something we should do because it makes sense. And any kind of advice like this can often convince us that maybe we've been foolish and that our instincts are childish and that it's time to, quote, grow up. I mean, here I am in my 50s and my AI is basically telling me, he didn't say that so many words, but it's basically saying that I need to grow up and I need to be realistic and I need to stop having these childish dreams, right? Little did it know that my whole life has been based on childish dreams, and I've done just fine up till now, thank you. But anyway, I was asking for its advice, and anyone, whether it's AI or somebody else, if they hand you a plan, it looks like good advice, but it feels lifeless in your body. You got to think about it before you take it. Because for a moment, as I'm reading all this advice, I'm thinking about doing it. I'm considering it. That's the reason the other part of me was so afraid at that moment. Because I was actually considering it. Because part of me at a prior moment had thought the same thing. Had thought that this is what I need to do. I need to be practical. I need to be realistic. That advice tapped into a part of myself that already had thought that. Because all of us, we are raised in society and we all know what it means to be realistic and to be practical. And sometimes we do need to be realistic and we need to be practical. And it was kind of tapping into that part of myself that worried that I wasn't being realistic enough. So because it seemed practical and smart, and AI always comes off as completely confident, right? It knows what it's telling you is right? This is the machine. And other people can be that way too. If you're asking other people for their advice, especially people who are willing to give you advice, they're most likely going to sound confident in what they tell you should do. So I was worried that maybe I wasn't being these things. And because I was tired at the moment, and I was kind of at the end of my rope when I was asking it this, there's a strange comfort in letting something else or somebody else take over. I mean, that's often why we seek advice in the first place. We've kind of come to the end of our own ability to think this through and to figure it out. So we're hoping that maybe somebody else can help us do that, because we're thinking in that moment that maybe we're just not smart enough, or we're not seeing the whole picture, or somebody else's point of view could help us clear this up. And sometimes it's true, they can. But the key insight that I want to share with you here today, part of me thought that I should follow this advice. And the advice brought up memories of part of me that had thought the same thing. And that's when this insight hit me. And that was that the danger was not just that AI thought it knew what was best for me. It was that I secretly wanted it to. It was that I secretly wanted it to know what was best for me, to tell me what to do, so that I could then go do it and be out of this place of indecision. Because if it was right, I could stop struggling. Oh my gosh, I could stop worrying. I could stop having to go through this transition, which whatever transition you're going through in your life is always difficult. So we want relief. And so I could stop being the one who is responsible for believing in something that might never work. Because my whole life, that's how I've been. I've believed in things that might not work and taken steps toward them. And that is what has helped me live a life of artistic integrity. But when we're in places of indecision, we're looking for someone else to take that responsibility away from us, to take the responsibility for making these difficult choices away from us so that we don't feel the burden of them. And I realized then that that's really what I was looking for. I was looking for answers from someone or something else, and that I wasn't really looking for truth. I was looking for relief. But what I know is that relief and alignment are not the same thing. And I knew that if I traded one for the other, that everything about me would go dim, that my light would go out. It's interesting because when we're trying to see what the next step is in our future, we can't see the whole picture. We can't see a lot of it. Perhaps we can see only glimpses of it. But when I looked at the possible future that AI was laying out for me, I could see that very clearly. And my whole sense of self just drooped. I could feel it all just dropping into the chair. And the thing that really told me this would be a mistake was this feeling of, I don't want to live that life. If that has to be my life, I don't want to live it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be there. And it was a scary time because I thought at that moment that maybe this was the quote truth that I had been avoiding, what AI was telling me. And maybe it was time to face reality and be practical. And that maybe I just needed to buck up and face this life that felt like it would drain all the light out of me and just do it. You know, that maybe that was what was necessary right now. And it just felt like this, I just put this huge heavy coat on when it was like 80 degrees outside. So I kind of sat with that for a while, that whole idea. Maybe I could do this for a short time. Wouldn't be forever. Maybe I just do this for now. But then something inside me started to push back, just like a quiet protest. And I realized that if I did that, if I lived that practical life, that I'd be cutting myself off from the inner current that has carried me through every other chapter of my life to this day. And I also knew that this idea that I could do this just for a short time was also probably a lie. Because I know that once we get into doing the practical thing and we think we're just going to do it for a short time, oftentimes we're lying to ourselves about that, because doing something else involves much more than just temporarily doing this other thing. Oftentimes it changes so many colors about our lives. You know, you take a job that you know that's not right for you just because you got to earn some money for a while. Suddenly your energy, your focus, your attention is all going on that other job, leaving very little at the end of the day to pay attention to the inner current that's inside of you or to the direction you really wanted to go. And we also can get lazy because we're in this other place. Now all the things are basically taken care of. We don't have immediate concerns right away. You know, the basic bills are being paid. Everything's basically okay. Suddenly the urgency to make a change isn't so huge anymore because things are going along all right. We can afford to stay here for longer and longer and longer. And you can see the picture I'm painting here. When we settle for the safer choice or the more practical choice or the more reasonable choice that seems to make sense on paper or in the AI program, it's not just this temporary thing that we're doing so many times. Sometimes we can work a part-time job for a couple of months, skate ourselves over and be just fine. And I'm not saying that that's never possible, but I'm saying oftentimes if we're settling for a choice that we know isn't right for us, we get inside that other life and it changes us. Whatever you're working, it's also working on you. Whatever environment we surround ourselves in, whatever we focus on, whatever we bring our attention to, and whether we are stoking our inner selves or we're dampening it down, it affects us. It works on us. Whatever situation we're in is working on us too. And so we can't imagine that we can go into some situation that we're settling for that is the reasonable choice when it's not really what we want, that somehow that's going to get us where we want to go. Because often all it does is take us further away. I guess guess that's what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way. So I didn't take the AI's advice. I'm sure you probably knew that by now. I didn't take the practical path. And I'm so grateful that I didn't, because what I'm building now, because of the choice I made, it's work that actually feels alive to me. It brings me to life, and it feels connected to that inner current that I have. It's not always easy, and it's not always stable to make decisions that follow where our intuition is leading, but it is real. I mean, if we want to live authentically true to ourselves, we want our lives to unfold to our highest benefit, then we got to follow this inner voice, even when it seems impractical. So if you're standing in this kind of a place right now, where you've got a path that looks safe and looks reasonable and looks practical, but you've got this other path that's speaking to you, and it feels uncertain but alive, let's talk about the difference between these two. Because once you can tell them apart, you'll be able to tell exactly which one is calling to you. So when you're in the place of fog or indecision, both paths can look reasonable. The practical path looks clear, and it promises a lot of things that we want: security and predictability, approval from others. It's the one that makes sense when we list out our pros and cons. And when we're tired of taking risks, especially, it's often the one that makes sense. The other path, the one that rises from our inner selves or our inner current, usually doesn't make a lot of sense. It's quieter, it's messier, it's harder to explain, it doesn't seem smart. It just feels right, and it feels exciting, and it motivates us. The practical path will get us somewhere, but the question is it going to take us where we want to go? Usually not. It also costs something. I mean, it gives us stability and predictability and approval, but it can cost us our vitality. It can cost us our creativity. We'll move forward, but we could find ourselves shrinking as we go, becoming less than we could have become had we been willing to take risks. The inner current path does the opposite. It rarely looks impressive on paper, especially at first. But when you move toward it, something inside us expands. I mean, I love that feeling. When I follow the inner current, things open up, things expand, things seem bigger, and I feel more awake. And the outcome isn't guaranteed. It's never guaranteed. Could be that going this direction results in nothing but some fun experimentation. But this is the difference between these two paths. The practical path will satisfy logic, but the inner path will often restore life. And to me, that's pretty huge, and it makes it pretty clear which choice is the best one. So then the question becomes, if it feels that clear and we can feel which path we want to go on, why do we keep ignoring it? Why do we keep choosing the logical path? Or why do we keep asking for advice or Googling for answers or checking with AI to see what it thinks? The truth is that trusting our inner current sounds simple. Trusting the intuition sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things to do. And I've learned this over the course of my life. Especially right now, it's one of the hardest things to do because advice is easier to access nowadays than oxygen almost. When we're stuck, one of the fastest ways we seek relief is to ask advice. In fact, psychologists have found that when people feel anxious, they're far more likely to ask for and to follow advice than those who feel calm. Because the moment we reach outside of ourselves, we quiet that storm of indecision that's swirling around in our heads, at least for a little bit. And we kind of like hand over the burden to that other person that's giving us the advice. And oftentimes the advice we get sounds great, especially if we ask people that we admire or that we think know their stuff. You know, here's what you need to do, just do this. Okay. Fear goes away a little bit. Everything isn't okay. We know that it's not okay way down deep inside, but we push that down. We say, it's okay, I'll just take this step. Everything's okay now. But this is why it's dangerous to rely on someone else's advice. You can follow this advice that sounds perfect and still end up feeling lifeless inside. Logic can solve a problem, but it can't restore meaning. It can't bring us purpose. There's another layer to this too, why we tend to ask for advice. We've actually been trained to do so. Harvard researchers found that people who ask for advice are perceived as more competent than those who make their own calls. So this isn't just emotional, it's cultural. It's like if you ask someone advice, especially if that someone you know is older, supposedly wiser than you, then you look like you're more competent. You look like you know what you're doing. You don't think you know it all, you're asking for advice. And we've built a world that rewards conformity and calls it wisdom. And now with AI, that pull is even stronger because the machine sounds calm, it sounds certain, it's been trained on every bit of information there is. It seems like it's endlessly reasonable. It's kind of like anxiety's dream come true. I mean, I hear some of my friends telling me that they're using AI as their therapist, and I can kind of see why, because it seems so logical and so straightforward and so practical. But psychologists warn about automation bias, another term for you, which is the instinct to trust what a machine says simply because it sounds confident. We forget that AI can't feel the cost of the choices we make. So when we're stuck, anxious, uncertain, and desperate for clarity, it makes perfect sense to reach for advice. I'm not saying that we shouldn't ask for advice. What I've learned most of the time is that asking for advice is just like pushing a pause button on fear. It quiets you for a moment, but it doesn't move you forward. Or if it does, it often moves you in the wrong direction. So if advice can pull us off course, does that mean we should stop asking for it altogether? No. Like I was saying, there's nothing wrong with asking for advice. There's nothing wrong with weighing your options. There's nothing wrong with using AI to brainstorm some of the possibilities you're thinking about, because that can open doors in our brain and it can give us perspective and even remind us of things that we already know. But the real question is, how do we know if the advice fits us? How do we know if we should follow this advice? How can we tell when it's the truth or when it's just fear wearing a mask? Here are 3 ways I've learned to tell the difference. Number 1, when you get advice, notice not only how it sounds, but how it feels. Try not to judge whether it's good or bad. Just feel how it sits on you. Take a breath, pay attention to what happens inside your body as you take in this advice. If it's right for you, typically you will feel a softening. You might even sense a little bit of relief, or you might detect a bit of clarity popping up in your mind. If it's not right, your body's going to tell you that too, because you're going to feel smaller and heavier and tired, or maybe even hollowed out, maybe a little dead. Here's a simple test you can try. When you get the advice, imagine actually doing what the advice suggests. That's what I did. When AI laid it all out for me, I imagined doing what it was suggesting. And that's when I felt the person screaming inside of me, and then the heaviness and the fact that this would be just a dead-end life for me. If the advice gives you a spark of energy, then it's probably aligned. If you imagine doing this and you feel energized, it's probably aligned with you. If you feel your energy drain, then that's your sign that it's probably not your advice to follow. Second step when you're evaluating advice is to look for energy, not certainty. Okay, so when we ask for advice, oftentimes we're looking for certainty. We just want relief from this indecision. But try to resist looking for certainty and look for energy instead. So when someone offers a plan to you that sounds neat and logical, and you're wanting to grab it because it feels like it'll just solve everything for you, think twice, because the next steps in your life, particularly if you're facing a life transition, they rarely come with certainty. I look back on all the times in my life when I went through transitions. I don't remember there ever being a time of certainty. There was never certainty there. There was never anything that said, go this direction and everything will be awesome. Never had that. But I always had energy. When I was thinking of the next step, when I was going in the direction my inner self wanted to go, there was always energy. Crackling. I mean, I could feel it. It was like this joy, this motivation. When advice is right for you, it stirs something awake inside you. And you want to take the next step. Even if you don't know where it's all leading, you want to take that step. If the advice is wrong, you'll go numb and you'll start analyzing and researching, and you might stall out, and you might do anything you can to avoid starting because you can sense this isn't the right step for you. And the last test you can put this advice through is to ask yourself, does this honor my inner current or silence it? Or you might say, does this honor my inner voice or my inner self or my intuition? Or does it silence it? Does it squash it? Every big decision that we make in life tests our loyalty to that inner voice. The quiet part of us, most of the time when we listen to that, we don't regret it. I know I never have in my life. I'm not sure what your experience has been, but if you've really listened to your intuition and you've done what it suggested, most of the time you don't regret that. So when you get advice that honors that inner self, you might feel closer to yourself. You might feel stronger, more confident, more clear-headed, and more connected. If the advice doesn't honor your intuition or your inner self, you're going to feel like you're shrinking into someone else's version of who you should be, or into some sensible life that isn't one that you want to live. So that's what I would encourage you to do for your investigation this week. When someone offers you advice, whether it's AI or something else, try not to rush to decide if it's good or bad. Just try it on, see what it feels like, and ask yourself if you feel more alive or less. Do you feel expanded, or do you feel like you're shrinking? Do you feel more open and lighter, or do you feel heavier? Those tiny sensations are your inner self speaking to you. And if you listen long enough, it will lead you the direction you want to go. If you'd like a little help with that, I have something for you called the Signals Journal. It walks you through 7 common signs that your life is asking for a change and gives you some simple prompts so you can decode what they mean. You can grab it absolutely for free using the link below. Remember, the next story of your life doesn't start with a perfect advice. It starts when you remember what your own voice is recommending and deciding to trust it again. So go ahead, ask AI if you want. See what it says, and then see how that feels to you. Thanks for watching, and if you found value in this video, please like and subscribe. Remember, your life is planning something, so you might as well start eavesdropping. I'll see you next time.